Have you ever wondered how a person, a complex human being, actually begins? It's this incredible story of microscopic engineering and a perfectly timed dance of cells that's almost hard to wrap your head around. So let's dive into this masterclass of creation, starting from the very first spark.
Okay, so this drawing right here, this is going to be our map. It lays out everything we're about to cover, from that first single cell all the way to the fundamental blueprint of a body. I know it looks like a lot, but trust me, we're going to break it all down step by step.
So where does this whole incredible story begin? You might imagine it as this one single Big Bang moment, right? But the reality, it's more like a perfectly timed cascade of events, both hormonal and cellular.
All right, let's start right at the beginning, week 1. This is where the spark of life is truly ignited, the moment our two key players finally get to meet.
For fertilization to even have a shot, the timing has to be absolutely perfect, and it all kicks off with a hormonal surge. You've got luteinizing hormone, or LH, which basically gives the green light to release an egg. At the same time, estrogen is busy prepping the uterine environment. It's this amazing hormonal teamwork that gets the egg into the fallopian tube, literally setting the stage for what happens next.
And boom, once that meeting is successful, we have our official beginning, the zygote. This one single cell is the starting point of a whole new individual. And what's wild is that it already contains the complete genetic blueprint, with half from one parent and half from the other.
But, it's not going to stay a single cell for long. Not at all. Its very next mission is to multiply, and it gets started on that journey right away.
So this super fast division process, it's called cleavage, and it's just this cascade, right? One cell splits into 2, then 4, then 8, and it just keeps doubling and doubling until you get this little solid ball of about 16 cells called a morula. But wait, it doesn't stop there. The cells then do this amazing little reorganization, forming a hollow structure, the blastocyst. And get this, all of this is happening while it's traveling down the fallopian tube, headed for its new home.
All right, on to week 2. And this week is all about finding a safe place to land and set up a home. The journey's over, and now it's time to, move in. So let's zoom in on that blastocyst for a second, because it's not just some random ball of cells. Oh no, it has a very specific and very clever design with 2 distinct and super important parts.
And this is where you start to see a real division of labor. It's pretty cool. You've got the outer ring of cells, that's the trophoblast. Think of them as the support crew. Their whole job is to form the placenta. And then there's that cluster of cells on the inside, the inner cell mass. That is the main event. That's what's actually going to become the embryo itself.
So once it arrives in the uterus, the blastocyst has its most important mission yet, implantation. It literally burrows its way into the uterine lining, which is all rich with nutrients, to establish this really vital connection with the mother. And this connection? It's not just physical. It kicks off a super important hormonal conversation, a chemical back and forth that's absolutely crucial to keep the pregnancy going. So those trophoblast cells, the support crew, remember? They start pumping out a hormone called HCG. Yep, that's the one that pregnancy tests look for. It's basically the signal that shouts, "Hey, we're here, we've implanted." And that signal tells the body to keep progesterone levels way up, which in turn keeps the uterine lining thick and stable, making it a safe, nurturing home for the embryo. Okay, now we're heading into week 3. And this is where things get really, really interesting. We're talking major architectural changes. Remember that inner cell mass we talked about? So far, it's been a pretty simple little 2-layered disk of cells. But now, in week 3, it's about to go through one of the most mind-blowing transformations in all of development. Seriously.
This whole process is called gastrulation. And honestly, you could argue it's the single most important event of your early life. This is the moment the blueprint for your entire body gets laid down. It creates 3 primary layers, and every single part of you, every organ, every tissue, is going to come from one of these 3 layers.
So how on earth does that happen, right? Well, this little groove forms on the surface of that disk of cells. It's called the primitive streak. You can kind of think of it like a busy highway. Cells from the top layer start moving, and they dive down through this streak to form a totally new middle layer. And they also reorganize the bottom layer. It's an incredible cellular migration. And what you're left with are these 3 master layers. The outer layer, the ectoderm, that's going to become your skin, your brain, your entire nervous system, basically everything that interfaces with the outside world. The new middle layer, the mesoderm, that's your structural stuff, muscle, bone, your heart, your blood.
And that inner layer, the endoderm, that becomes the lining of all your internal tubes, like your digestive system and your lungs.
So now that this 3-layer blueprint is locked in, the real construction can finally begin.
And you see the results almost immediately. In that middle layer, the mesoderm, this rod-like structure called the notochord forms. Think of the notochord as the project manager. It starts sending out chemical signals to the ectoderm layer right above it, telling it, okay, time to thicken up and form the neural plate. And that's the very, very beginning of the brain and the spinal cord.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. We went from one single cell to 3 master layers that are already laying the foundation for a spine and a brain. And all of this happened in just 3 short weeks. It is just an absolutely breathtaking feat of biological engineering.
So what's the big takeaway here? The first few weeks are definitely not just a waiting game. They are the most active, the most critical construction phase of an entire human life. It really is a masterclass in biology, where every single step is perfectly timed and every little structure has a huge purpose.
And all of this leads to a pretty mind-blowing question. Okay, so you've got the blueprint, right? You've got these 3 layers. But how in the world do a bunch of cells in the mesoderm just know to come together, to change, and to form a coordinated, beating heart? How is that even possible? Well, that is a story for next time.